There are books that inform, books that argue, books that teach, and then there are books that wound. Books that slice through centuries of comfortable illusions, tear open the hidden machinery of morality, and force humanity to look at itself without its masks, its excuses, its borrowed ideals. Books that refuse to whisper, they detonate. Among such books, one stands alone, half philosophy, half prophecy, wrapped in a firestorm of ideas that still burn today, more than a century after their birth. This is the story of Beyond Good and Evil, the forbidden manuscript of Friedrich Nietzsche. But to understand why this text matters, why it terrifies, liberates, confuses, and awakens, you must step into a realm where morality is a spell, truth is an interpretation, and the human soul is a battlefield older than civilization itself. Most people approach Nietzsche like a dusty philosopher in a library. But tonight, you will meet him as he truly was. A man standing at the edge of the abyss, a man pounding on the walls of human morality, a man who dared to ask a question that almost no civilization has ever allowed. What if good and evil are illusions? And what if humanity has been living inside a moral hallucination for millennia? This is not a review of a book. This is a journey through a doorway Nietzsche opened, and one that can never fully be closed. So, let the journey begin. The story starts with a simple question. A question so ancient that the first priests carved it into stone. A question so dangerous that kingdoms built laws around it. A question that echoes in every religion, every culture, every moral code humanity ever created. What is good and what is evil? We say we know. We say we feel it. We say morality is universal, timeless, absolute. But Nietzsche looked at the moral codes of Europe, codes built by centuries of religion, tradition, conformity, and he asked, "Do you actually know why you believe what you believe?" Most people don't. Most people inherit morality the way they inherit their surnames, not through reflection, but through repetition.
So Nietzsche took a torch to the foundations of Western ethics, not to destroy them, but to expose the hidden architecture beneath. And what he found was not divine truth, not natural law, not universal morality. He found something darker, older, more human. He found power. Because to Nietzsche, morality is not a divine gift. It is a human creation, a creation shaped by needs, instincts, fears, and most of all, by conflicts between different types of people. So he told a story not written in chapters, but in the rise and fall of civilizations. A story of two moralities, two competing lenses through which humanity interprets good and evil. He called them master morality and slave morality. Not as master as in domination, not as slave as in literal chains, but two psychological worlds, two ways of valuing life, two sides of an invisible war inside the human spirit. Picture an ancient world, not the world of cities and laws, but the world of raw existence. A world where tribes stood against the unknown, where storms, beasts, hunger, and darkness shaped the meaning of strength. In this world, Nietzsche said, the first morality emerged, not through rules, not through commandments, but through instinct. The strong looked at life and said, "What is good? What affirms my strength, my vitality, my courage, my ability to create?" To them, good was synonymous with power. Not power over others, but power over themselves. Power to rise, to act, to shape the world. Power to live fully, fearlessly, joyfully. They praise strength, bravery, generosity, pride. creation. This was master morality, the morality of affirmation, a morality that said yes to life. But alongside these people, Nietzsche imagined another group, a group who did not have physical strength, social status, or the means to shape the world directly. Instead, they shaped it indirectly, through values. They couldn't win through force, so they won through morality. They elevated the virtues that made their weakness seem holy. They blessed humility, obedience, patience, and meekness, not because these values were divine, but because they made the powerful appear corrupt and sinful. They created a moral universe where their suffering became evidence of purity, and the strength of their enemies became evidence of evil. Out of resentment, out of powerlessness, they forged a new value system. This was slave morality, the morality of inversion. A morality that said no to life, not because life was bad, but because life didn't favor them. This moral revolution, this inversion of values, created the foundations of Western morality. Values like humility, selflessness, equality, compassion. Beautiful values, yes, but Nietzsche argued they were born not from divine truth, but from psychological strategy.
A rebellion of the powerless, a redefinition of good and evil, not to elevate humanity, but to neutralize strength. It was a moral coup, a revolution so successful that almost no one knows it happened. Nietzsche wasn't judging. He wasn't worshiping strength or condemning kindness. He was exposing the genealogy of morality, asking, where did our values come from? Whose psychology do they serve? And are we still choosing them, or are we obeying them blindly? This was the first wound beyond good and evil inflicted on Western thought. But it was only the beginning, because once Nietzsche dismantled traditional morality, he confronted an even deeper mystery, a force beneath all values, beneath all human actions, beneath all civilizations, a force he believed drives every living thing. He called it the will to power, not the desire to dominate, not the hunger for political control, something older, something cosmic. Imagine a seed pushing through the soil, a child learning to walk, an artist creating a painting, a thinker questioning accepted truths, a community building a city, even a struggling person getting back up after failure. All of these and more are expressions of the will to power. It is the drive to grow, to become, to rise beyond limitations. It is the impulse toward self-overcoming. Most philosophies say humans are driven by survival, pleasure, happiness, instinct, or rationality. Nietzsche disagreed. He believed the deepest human drive, the engine behind our desires, fears, ambitions, and creations, is the will to power, the drive to expand, to express oneself, to transform, to impose form on chaos. In this view, morality is not imposed from above, it is created from within. Human nature is not passive, it is volcanic. It is volcanic. And yet, Nietzsche warned, most people live with their will to power suppressed. Why? Because society is designed to tame it. Religion, culture, norms, expectations, all these create comfort, but also cages. The will to power becomes domesticated, redirected, inverted into guilt, shame, self-hatred. Nietzsche saw modern humans as lions raised in petting zoos, creatures built for strength, creativity,
risk, and transformation, forced to live inside tiny moral enclosures. This is why he introduced one of the most misunderstood ideas in philosophy: the revaluation of all values. Nietzsche didn't want chaos. He didn't want the destruction of morality. He wanted a renewal, a rebirth of the human spirit, a cleansing fire. He believed humanity was entering a great crisis, not political, not economic, but moral. A crisis where old values were dying, but new ones had not yet been born. People no longer believed in religion, but they still clung to religious morality. People no longer believed in absolute truth, but they still argued as if truth were absolute. People no longer believed in cosmic order, but they still craved purpose. Humanity was living in moral ruins, between worlds.
Nietzsche saw this crisis as an opportunity, not for destruction, but for creation. He imagined a new kind of human emerging, not a tyrant, not a conqueror, not a master of others, but a master of themselves. A human capable of creating their own values, living from their strength, not from inherited guilt, embracing existence with courage, not fear. He called this figure the philosopher of the future, a creator of meaning rather than a worshiper of old truths. To prepare for this transformation, Nietzsche revealed one more idea, one that would challenge everything humanity believed about knowledge, truth, and certainty. He called it perspectivism, and it begins with a simple but terrifying claim. There is no absolute truth. There are only perspectives. Human beings do not see the world as it is. They see it through lenses shaped by biology, culture, language, emotion, history, and power. Every viewpoint is partial. Every belief is filtered. Every truth is interpreted. This doesn't mean everything is false. It means knowledge is alive, shifting, evolving, expanding. Truth is not a discovery. Truth is a creation. Nietzsche believed that differing perspectives are not obstacles to truth. They are pathways to it. To understand a problem, you must approach it from multiple angles, like walking around a statue to see its full form. In a world flooded with conflicting information, news feeds, social media debates, tribal identities, ideological battles, Nietzsche's insight feels prophetic. People today don't disagree because one side has the truth and the other is blind. They disagree because they inhabit different perspectives, different worlds. This realization is not meant to divide, but to liberate. Once you understand perspectivism, you stop clinging to your beliefs as if they were divine. You begin to explore other viewpoints. You become flexible, curious, resilient. And most importantly, you begin to create your own perspective, your own values, your own meaning. You stop living inside the moral stories handed down to you. You begin to write your own. This, to Nietzsche, is what it means to live beyond good and evil. Not to become immoral, not to become cruel, not to reject ethics, but to overcome inherited morality, to step outside the boundaries of tribal thinking, to take responsibility for your existence, your choices, your purpose, to become the author of your life. Because in the end, Nietzsche believes humanity is capable of greatness, not the greatness of empire or dominance, but the greatness of becoming. Becoming what you are, becoming who you were meant to be before society tamed you, becoming the fullest expression of your will to power.
And so the story begins where it ends, with a question, not for Nietzsche, but for you. Are you ready to go beyond good and evil? Are you ready to step outside inherited values and create your own? Are you ready to face the world as it truly is, not a battlefield of moral absolutes, but a landscape of perspectives, challenges, and possibilities? Because Nietzsche's message is not about the past, it is about this moment.
Right now, in a world divided by ideology, exhausted by conflict, overwhelmed by information, and starved for meaning, we are living exactly in the crisis Nietzsche foresaw. We are standing in the ruins of old values, waiting for new ones, hungry for clarity, purpose, direction. And perhaps that is why Beyond Good and Evil speaks louder today than ever. Not because it gives answers, but because it awakens the courage to ask real questions. Not because it offers comfort, but because it offers transformation. Not because it tells you what to believe, but because it challenges you to believe in your own becoming. So hear this final whisper from Nietzsche's forbidden manuscript. Values are not found, they are forged. Morality is not inherited, it is created. Truth is not revealed, it is interpreted. And you, yes, you, are not a passive observer of morality. You are its maker. To live beyond good and evil is to step into the authorship of your soul. It is to rise above guilt, fear, and conformity. It is to look at life not with obedience, but with courage. Not with resentment, but with strength. Not with borrowed truths, but with earned wisdom. The philosopher of the future is not a scholar, not an academic, not a prophet. It is the human being who has awakened, the human being who sees with their own eyes, the human being who dares to live honestly, courageously, meaningfully, the human being who chooses their values not because they were told, not because they were taught, but because they were created. And so the final question becomes the beginning. What values will you create? What will you affirm? What will you become? The journey beyond good and evil is not Nietzsche's story anymore. It is yours. The episode ends here, but the awakening begins now.
If you enjoyed this journey into the forgotten and the hidden, don't leave without subscribing. Your support helps this channel uncover more mysteries, more ancient truths, and more stories buried in time. Hit the subscribe button and join me as we continue unlocking the secrets of our world.